So you care about your app. And in the good old days, that was an easy proposition. You sat down, you wrote the app, you ran the app, you knew the app was good. But today, things are getting more complicated. It's a Node.js app, which you want to scale out, because that's the point. You're doing a bit of service-oriented architecture. So you've got two apps. One's kind of old school on Tomcat. That's got MySQL. The other one's Cassandra. Both of them sending click trails to Hadoop. And you want to scale the whole lot out, because that's the point. And as a developer, there's this huge gap between the experience that you have writing your app and the complex topology that's going to be running in production. Or is there? So we looked at how people were using Ubuntu on Amazon and tried to figure out if we could encapsulate all the goodness in each of those boxes so that they could become completely reusable. And that is what Juju is all about. So Juju sets out to essentially distill the goodness in all of those boxes so that you can just reuse them immediately. And you can reuse them on your laptop, creating a complete environment, a complete mirror scaled out of what's going to be running in the cloud. So this creates all kinds of possibilities. This is an example of how you'd use Juju. So I'm going to create a little service. It's a Node.js service. I'm going to use something called Subway, which is a great little IRC client, HTML5 IRC client. It uses Mongo as a data store. So what's going on here? All we're doing is we're deploying Mongo. We are then deploying Node and telling it through some config that we wanted to pull in an app, and then telling it that we want to call that node in the graph Subway. And then we're connecting all of those pieces. So we use Juju charms. Now, a charm is just a distillation of ops goodness. We have packages for binaries, and we have charms for all of the operational goodness that goes into that. So I'm deploying the Mongo charm, then I'm deploying the Node app charm, and telling it I'm going to call it Subway, and then I'm going to deploy, and then I'm going to tell those two to connect to each other. And that's literally all I have to do. So what would it look like? Well, I have it running over here. If I just do that, you can see that in memory, I have a bunch of different containers. We've done a lot of work on Linux containers. So in memory, I have a bunch of different, almost like virtual machines, but much more lightweight. And you can see that they have different IP addresses. They're all connected up. The sum total of the work to create that is what I showed you. And you can see down here that, that Subway itself has got its own IP address, so I can go and have a look at that. Well, it's already there. And I know it's on port 3000. Well, yeah, live. And so there it is running. So that's running live in memory. I can scale it out. I can add units to it. So for example, if I wanted to tell that Mongo charm that I wanted to scale it out, I could say something like Juju add unit. Whoops. And I think that would give me a little bit of happiness. I can also visualize this. So this is a little command that will show you essentially what's running in a nice kind of environment. Okay, so let's just kill that. So, development's about iterations, right? There's iterations on your desktop, then there's iterations in test, and now suddenly you have handovers as well. And ultimately, iterations all the way through to production. And we measure velocity by saying, how fast can you get from development of a new feature to you happy with it, till testing is happy with it, till production is happy with it. And Juju is all about dramatically, radically, by an order of magnitude, cutting the friction and therefore increasing the velocity, reducing the time that it takes you to iterate in development, iterate through test, and iterate into production. And the interesting thing is that each of those things happens in a different place. So we had to make Juju so that you could deploy in memory on your laptop. but you could also deploy to the cloud, and you can deploy to the metal. So you can design this complex topology, that whiteboard in your office, and you can run it in your laptop and then map it to any of those environments, right? So that's why we call Juju DevOps distilled, because it really gets to the essence of what's going on in DevOps. Inside the charm, all of the wisdom of the expert who knows how to deploy Hadoop or deploy Cassandra is encapsulated. What's happened here is that we've stepped up a level from configuration management. People have preferences around configuration management. Juju can wrap around any of those. So inside that charm, you have to know and express when you're deploying Hadoop how to configure it the first time, how to configure replica sets, masters and slaves, and so on. You might like doing that with Puppet, or you might like doing that with Chef, or you might like rewriting the configuration files with Perl or Awk or Sed, or however you choose to do it. That's okay. Juju just wraps that goodness essentially into the charm and encapsulates it so that you can reuse it, so that other people can reuse it as well. And that reuse is at a level that we've never seen before. So instead of Googling around and copying snippets of bash scripts that bring stuff up quickly, you're actually able to just reach into the cloud and grab an off-the-shelf charm that does most of what you're likely to want from any one of these kinds of things. There's hundreds of them now, and there's a whole community process that's spun up around it to improve the quality of those, to give them, for example, build test suites into the charms so that they can be tested, to build benchmarks into the charms so that we know how they're improving over time. So go and have a look at jujucharms.com. There's tons of charms there. There's a level of abstraction that's going on. We are getting rid of the day where you actually need to know all of the configuration details of some of these complex parts, because the charm writer will essentially decide that there are a couple of key choices that you have to make. For example, are you wanting to optimize to run that in memory? Are you optimizing that data store for write throughput? Are you optimizing it for read throughput? And then inside the charm, they'll do all the work essentially to take that high-level choice, which is expressed as a property in the service once you've deployed it, to take that high-level choice and map it into the configuration files that you need. So what you really want is you want to use the charm that was written by the guy who wrote the book with the animal on it, right? All of that wisdom distilled down into something that you can just deploy. Deploy Tarsus, or deploy the elephant. Good charms today are starting to do some amazing things. For example, they will let you, as a property, they will let you say where the binaries should come from. So, for example, you can deploy a MediaWiki, which is a big, complex bear of an application when you scale it out. And then you can go onto the MediaWiki node in the graph, which might be scaled out to 10 units or 20 units. And you can say, look, I actually want to see how this is running with tip. And so changing one property in the charm deployment, which you can do in real time, essentially runs out to version control, pulls down the latest version of MediaWiki, does whatever needs to be done in terms of compilation, puts it in the right place, and restarts it. You hit refresh in your browser, and your entire infrastructure just moved from the stable package to tip. So it's an awesome kind of environment. You can hack on branches, push those to GitHub, pull those into live running servers, and Juju takes care of all of the complex orchestration, all of the sequencing of who needs to be notified of what change when something's scaling up, when something's scaling down. We're essentially crowdsourcing ops, and that's not something that we've ever done before. We've learned over the years to crowdsource development, and we've got all the tools to do that. But for the first time, we're really starting to crowdsource in a really reusable way operational expertise.